filmmaking is editing. Editing is as important as directing.
Have you ever started a project and realized you've bitten off way more than you can chew? Like, maybe I'm never gonna finish this. In 2018, I set out to make a feature film right out of high school. With barely any money and no studios backing me. And by the time we finished shooting, I realized I had to edit the whole thing by myself. Shit! Hi, my name is Brayden, and I've been taking the internet through how I made my first indie feature film. It's called Human Resources. It's a story about Sam Coleman, an anxious college student who gets his first job at Brooks Hardware Store and quickly realizes they're harboring a supernatural secret right behind their walls.
I know it's in the store! You do.
And after a successful production, everybody went home and the movie was finished. Right? Not quite. I quickly learned one of the biggest filmmaking lessons that I've ever learned. Any project you do is entirely made in the edit. Now you're gonna come along with me as you see what it was like to edit Human Resources down to a less than 2-hour movie that premiered on Starz this year and went to movie theaters. Post-production is one of those things that most people don't even really think about, if we're being honest. I think people know that there's an editor, but maybe they don't exactly know what that means. Movie editing has a long history, from cutting film by hand to cutting on moviolas, eventually doing it in digital systems, all the way through to today, where you have a form of editing literally just in the TikTok app on your phone. I decided I was going to edit Human Resources on one of the most popular softwares out there, Adobe Premiere Pro, the very software that I'm using to make this video, and the software that was used on Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won Best Editing at the Oscars.
This is my second film, y'all. This is crazy.
But even though I had the same tools, how the hell was I gonna do this all by myself? If you've edited something before, more likely than not, you've edited something that's short form. This was definitely what I was used to before I did my first feature film. And with all these things, you're working with maybe a few days footage at the maximum. But a feature film? This was 22 full days of shooting a movie all day long, totaling 36 non-stop hours of footage. It was a gargantuan task to keep myself organized. And as you're editing your first cut, look, it's not about perfection. It is about getting from point A to point B to see how your story is feeling. This is called an assembly cut. And I really recommend getting these assembly cuts done as quickly as humanly possible, because it's not about how good they are. It's about seeing your story from a bird's eye view. So I ignored those feelings deep down that what we had shot was terrible, and I just started throwing things in the timeline and trying to make scenes work.
I'm impressed, you made good time.
Before I knew it, a rough cut was starting to take shape right before my eyes.
It is currently 1 a.m. I'm finishing the first cut of Human Resources. My eyes hurt, my brain hurts.
So 3 months after we finished shooting, I was able to finish a first cut, which meant it was finally time to screen it to the crew and see what they thought.
Definitely, it was a rough first cut. It was very, very long.
All right, and action. It was an almost 3-hour, really strewn together first cut of this movie. And I'm gonna be honest with you, as cool as it was to screen it, it was also incredibly disappointing.
And that's why,
It was like, oh, this is what we put all that hard work into? But even though so much of this was hard to sit through, as it continued, we remembered what a big accomplishment this was.
Help me!
Oh my god, it was so cool to see the really crazy days of production pay off with that cut.
I wasn't like that for the whole thing, but the last act of the movie was like, I'd say the most excited I'd ever been in a movie theater.
Sam Coleman, motherfucker!
Yeah, that was amazing.
It was not a complete failure, because we sat around and talked about it for hours after the movie and brainstormed exactly how we were gonna make this movie kick ass.
Yeah, we're doing this. We're in post-production and we're going.
This was only scratching the surface. The movie was 2 hours and 41 minutes long. Of course, there are some movies that need to be this long, but Human Resources was certainly not one of them. For a first feature film, you really want to try your best to keep things short. It will drastically improve your chances at film festivals, and let's be honest, getting anyone to sit down and watch your first movie. But it is so incredibly easy to shoot way more than you could ever need. But you don't realize this until you're staring at all your footage. At first, I went back into the editing software and I just trimmed the heads and the tails of shots, the beginning and the ends, just to trim it down and get right to the core of what the shot needed. And doing things like this already cut down the movie by like 15 whole minutes. And then I was like, okay, let's keep showing this to people and see what they think and trim this down as much as we can.
So we had my roommates from college. We had friends of friends come just as a normal moviegoer. What did you think? Were you confused? People do screenings beforehand because they want to know what people think, what works and what doesn't.
You sit in the theater or the room and you put it up against someone's eyeballs and you're like, oh my God, I see everything that I did wrong with it now. And for some reason, I just couldn't see it beforehand.
We ended up cutting a good amount of scenes that we felt like there's no way this scene can be cut. It's so important, but we found a way to cut it out.
Will you obey?
Eventually you kind of get broken down of like, do you want that scene or do you want a good movie? Like that's the question you have to ask yourself. Like you could have the best scene in the world, but if it's in the wrong place and it interrupts the flow of the movie, it needs to go.
4 days of shooting, out the door. But you know what? It worked out for the best.
Yeah, there you go.
I was really happy with how the edit was coming and the runtime started to finally come down. Everything was coming together, we were finishing things up quickly, and I was like, oh my God, like there's a few things I have to figure out, but we might actually be able to pull this thing off. We wanted to get all the final steps done and then premiere the movie in the summer of 2020.
Now to growing concerns about the deadly coronavirus officially hitting the U.S.
COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
The dreaded year was upon us, and we didn't know what we were gonna do for human resources.
We had to shut down everything. We had to reevaluate everything. We couldn't go to Chapman to use their coloring labs. We couldn't use their sound booths to do ADR. We were left with nothing.
I was honestly pretty scared on what was gonna happen with this movie.
Global cases have now passed 13 million.
But then I don't know, I started to realize we were still working with a cut that was over 2 hours long.
And I think COVID made us realize that we needed to slow down. We were not ready yet. We had a lot to work on this film.
Luckily though, it wasn't like it was in the middle of shooting when COVID hit. We were locked at home. I was doing things remotely anyways. I decided I would use all this extra time at home to just go after the edit in a new way and spend as much time as possible getting it right. We took a step back and we turned a major problem into, I think, a major solution. The first major thing I noticed was like, oh my gosh, there's stuff missing from this movie. There's shots missing. I'm sure you've heard of pickup shots or reshoots. It's when you miss something on the day of shooting and you have to go back to the location to fill in the empty spaces, film new scenes, or redo shots. But going back in person to these hardware stores was not even gonna be possible. Most of them were closed for those first few weeks anyways. So I was like, why not shoot them myself at home? So using the literal last dollars of our budget and any other cash I could scrape together, I picked up a Blackmagic camera on eBay for less than $1,000. And so me and my girlfriend Penny, our amazing production designer, had to figure out how to be an entire crew on our own.
Happy pickups.
Comb through your movie and see where you can add additional inserts, because that's going to be the easiest thing to shoot in a confined space, where you don't really have access to the locations of the actors. Luckily, since this was a scrappy production, we had access to all the costumes and props and anything we might need to recreate. In our case, it was like sticky notes for character building, lights being flickered, and a box cutter being sliced to heighten the horror scenes. The biggest one we did was the character in the opening of the film drops his lantern off of a ladder. It needed to be a scary moment, but due to how rushed we were on set, we did not have time to get a special effects shot of the lantern smashing on the ground. So we cleaned up part of my garage and tried to match the lighting from on set as best as we could.
3, 2, 1.
And there were so many other little pickups in the movie that we shot ourselves.
We out here shooting at Ace, put a help wanted sign on there. Shooting a time lapse and eating some Jack in the Box.
Even the final shot of the movie was done by Penny and I, just burning a prop notebook in our garage when I thought it could add to the story.
Okay, this is 5 shots. I'm gonna roll, you light it, you get out of there. I'm gonna do this for a second and then just say go. What a shot!
And a lot of them really helped the movie. Not all of them turned out great, to be honest, nor did they match the scenes exactly, but I thought it helped tell the story in a very unique and important way.
Redemption round, baby!
The makeshift COVID solutions did not stop there.
There's 3 writing phases of a movie. There's the screenplay, there's the filming, and then there's the editing. The edit is the final time where you get to completely rewrite the movie. So we just ended up adding a bunch of lines of dialogue that we had our actors record after the fact.
It's called ADR, which stands for Automated Dialogue Replacement. ADR is also for re-recording any lines that were misproperly recorded on set. Without it, the movie might feel a little empty or reveal our budget even more. The original plan was to get the whole cast together and utilize more of my friends' film school connections to get people in ADR booths with microphones and retakes and yada yada yada, but with COVID, it wasn't gonna happen. So after we adjusted to the new world that was upon us, we decided to ditch the professional setup, swallow our pride, and just do something in a spare room. So with a box spring mattress, a plastic separator, and a dream, we called everyone back to mask up and then mask off for an ADR session.
All set for everybody.
Masks because Corona.
I'm in the booth, baby. Yes! Yes! Yes!
Louder.
Yes! 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 Yes, yes, yes! Yes, yes, yes!
And then there's one more scream right there. Cool, got that one.
Hey! 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 Sam! Call me, motherfucker!
So good, dude. Okay, Kendall, are we good?
Yeah, that was it.
For the editing stage, we now had everything we needed to finish the final cut.
It does get tedious watching the same movie over and over. Anytime like a problem was fixed that we were having trouble with, like, oh yes, like, okay, that's like a little bit closer. And eventually it got to a place like, this is so different from the first cut and so much better. And all that awkward, like, extra footage was gone. And just the important stuff was there.
Tell me what to do! Where are you?
And you could always keep cutting more stuff and keep changing it, but eventually we got to a place where like, okay, we feel pretty good about this.
Even one of the last days, I was like, oh, I think we're done. I watched the movie back and noticed there were 2 full scenes we could just get rid of completely and not interrupt the flow of the story. In fact, help it. Like I said before, as filmmakers, we tend to overshoot, over-edit, and overall overcomplicate, but being concise is always better. And down from a 2-hour and 41-minute cut, the film rested at 1 hour and 48 minutes. Going back, I honestly wished I would have chopped off another 15 minutes, but hey, we had to stop somewhere. And that, my friends, is called picture lock. But that does not mean, no, under any circumstances, that this film was ready to be completed. A lot of people online these days are used to music and sound editing being instantaneous. Especially here in the YouTube world, working with royalty-free music and subscription-based services is pretty commonplace. But on a film, you really want to stand out as a production and create an original and unique sound. But okay, this is a scrappy production. We didn't really have any means of hiring professionals to do this, so what did we do? Well, since I had been doing the post-production all myself, I wasn't so sure. I could not fathom figuring out how to do yet another job. But luckily, my best friend Ethan, who I did all my short films with in high school, agreed to take on the sound design tasks himself, and I would help out where I could.
Early on, Braden and I didn't know exactly how we were going to do the sound workflow.
It was not only tricky because we didn't have any professional facilities, but we were sound designing a horror movie that needed a lot of unique work.
But we had this really weird, crazy idea of utilizing Adobe's interconnected software and using a Premiere Pro project as our sound design timelines.
In other words, he would completely work remotely on his personal computer at home during COVID lockdown. It took him months to do these scenes alongside my editing process as we both worked around school schedules and work schedules and life.
And once I had a really good pass in, I would send to Braden and he would watch it, give me notes till he was really satisfied with it.
And there was more than just sound editing work required. The script was asking for a lot of voice acting work too, which we had to do mostly ourselves. And besides finding an incredible actress who donated her time to be the store announcer,
service matters most.
We had to figure out what the horror creatures would sound like too.
Braden and I grabbed a mic and we spent probably like an hour creating these sounds. So we recorded the most disgusting, vomit-inducing, blood-curdling, guttural nastiness of like if you're watching somebody convulse.
Oh gosh.
By the end, I almost like vomited because my throat's dry.
Oh, I'm gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up. That's the one I always did that.
But somehow, thanks to Ethan's genius and our remote work process, we had a movie that genuinely felt professionally sound designed. For the music process, it was a little harder. Nobody in our film circles had ever really written any original pieces, and it's not like Human Resources was a short comedy film like we were used to make it. It was a 2-hour feature film with very intense musical needs.
Brandon and myself, we don't have this grandiose background story when, he was visiting Buckingham Palace and brushed past my shoulder and was like, whoa, that was so harmonic. We played on a Minecraft server together.
All right, well, Nick, let's do it.
I like cactus.
As if the stars aligned, we reconnected and you talked to me about a film and I talked to you about kind of doing movie soundtracks. Really wanted to push myself to see, could I write a movie soundtrack?
And taking that chance ended up being the best decision because Nick had another connection to a young artist who would help out on the team.
Nick and I having no prior experience to this, it kind of works because we're all just on a level playing field of we know what we're doing, but not really at the same time, technically.
We were a completely remote team and different time zones as well, especially with myself. So we completely collaborated over Discord.
As the process actually got underway, I would say it worked out pretty smoothly because at least in your case, Brain, you could say, I want this cue here, and then you could send a video over Instagram of...
Wait, what if it went like this? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, I'm gonna be the bass drum. What if it was... And then there could be really quick cello hits of either the drums or the high thing. So I like it there. Just have some sort of bell thing right on the hit. I don't know, something like that. What do you think?
And I thought all that was a perfectly valid way to do it. The fact that you're able to go in with a vision for how you want it to sound, I think that's really all you need at the end of the day to actually get the job done.
And much like Ethan, these two incredible composers worked throughout the pandemic to build a professional soundtrack with no budget. I honestly couldn't believe how well it came together, but it proved to me how much people believed in this indie production and how capable young artists are on their own. But let's be real, the amazing favors from people can only get you so far. Foley, visual effects, color grading, sound mixing, things that for the life of me I could not find people to help me with. All of these were staring me in the face and saying, you're not gonna finish the movie, you're never gonna finish us. And I had two options, basically give up and show the movie as is, or put my head down and turn myself basically into a studio machine. First, I set up my room just to be an office, and this was the summer of 2020, and there was nothing to do but work. To start, there was the process of Foley, all the in-universe sound effects, the footsteps and the taps, and any other noises you'd never think were designed, were all pretty much created by me. And I had never done any of this before. I never really estimated that it was going to be this much work, though. As grueling as it was so necessary. On top of Ethan's sound design, good Foley can take a shitty scene to a great one. Next was a huge process that I was a little terrified for. My history with VFX dates back to the Middle Ages of the 2000s, where I first opened Adobe After Effects to recreate Harry Potter's spell effects on my own. I was truly an artist. Over the years, I haven't really studied it that much more on my own, which is why I was concerned to do it all for a feature film. The majority of these tasks were fixing big issues on set that were caused by our low-budget production. Customers walking into frame on important shots, or getting makeup for continuity, fixing the signs at the hardware store locations, and even changing what the main character was holding to make sense after we cut a scene. To fix this, it was a mixture of out-of-the-box thinking and what's called rotoscoping. It's going frame by frame and cutting out certain elements of your shots. Evan and I had written a scene into the script where our lead character takes a light bulb and puts it into a lantern, and our plans to have it be a remotely controlled prop did not work out, so we just plugged the cord into the wall on set and had him haul it around, completely exposed. It was the most ultimate Hail Mary, we'll fix it in post situation that I ever did on set, and I paid the price. I would literally just sit and rotoscope it for hours. I was Googling tutorials and looking things up and just learning from trial by error. But then, the crazy thing that nobody ever thought would disappear on set finally, magically, was gone. And this is proof that some of the best VFX are the hidden ones. We had a lot of cool horror-y VFX too, but the majority of it was stuff like this. And after a month of working every single day alone in my room, I had 265 VFX shots completed by myself. And on top of an entire month-long process where my DP Cooper and I taught ourselves color grading.
Holy crap, we just finished.
Oh, huge.
That's what I'm talking about.
Every single step was completed on Human Resources, except for one. We had finished shooting in August of 2019, and now 1 year, 6 months, and 24 days had gone by, but post-production still wasn't over.
The final stretch was the sound mix, and that was, seeing you go through that was the most stressful part, because sound mixing is not easy and we couldn't do it ourselves, at least we thought.
For context, there's the process of sound design or sound editing, where you're recording or placing sound effects in your movie. But then there's sound mixing, which is often a much more technical and meticulous skill as much as it is creative. Mixing is where you're leveling all your audio to a proper volume to be able to hear every bit of your sound design correctly. And while the Oscars might now think those are the same thing, they certainly aren't. We wanted to go big and do a full surround sound mix to premiere the movie with, and somehow we were lucky enough to find a local stage to mix on. And even though it was $1,500 that we didn't have to get someone to do it, we were desperate and we had to give it a shot.
Going in for the final mix of Human Resources. I'm hoping I walk into a glorious mix and then we're gonna call it a day. So let's do this. Oh my gosh.
I was told the movie was fully mixed and ready to watch. But it wasn't right. And I'll be honest, it was pretty much all my fault. We cut corners by paying a teensy tiny fraction of what it would actually cost for someone to mix this professionally. And even though it was a lot of money for us, this was a movie we had spent years on, and it did not sound a thing like it was supposed to.
I mean, at that point I was like, you know what, this guy's doing the mix for us, it is what it is, let's take it and go. And you were like, no, it's not right, it can't be like this.
Maybe I was a little bit obsessed, but I realized for the millionth time that it was up to me. This was gonna be the ultimate test to see if I was truly an indie filmmaker.
I have just completed the organization process for Human Resources sound mixing.
And I've decided to sound mix in Adobe Premiere Pro, the software that I'm editing with, which is a little unconventional, but this entire process has been unconventional, so yeah. So like 9 different times I have to watch the movie back and listen to see if any of the wrong audio clips got into the wrong layers. So I'm having tons of fun just listening to footsteps in the background as I'm having a great time. I've been going for like 2 weeks now, help me God. It's been a long freaking night. I'm coming off of a 17-hour workday. I'm gonna go to bed. My computer's been exporting all night, so I went to bed at like 4:30. And in a surprise turn of events, it deleted about half of one of the sound design layers. And everything exported incorrectly. This whole movie is never going to be finished. I'm convinced of it. Another session of editing this godforsaken audio. Sweet Jesus. I'm going crazy. 3:30. I don't know if I can do it, man. I'm starting to really feel it. The things we do for cinema. So much fun making movies. I want it to end. Okay, I will see you guys later. We have a day of fixing and mixing ahead, and it might be the day I finish it. It looks like I've checked off all the stuff in the journal. Wait, I think there's one more to check off. There we go. Check, scribble. I may have done it. I'm about to watch the cut back. We're gonna see if I have any final notes, and this might be the end, my friends. All right, I finished watching. And boom. Yep, there it is. I think I did it. I think it's done. 3, 2, 1. Thank you for the memories. Let's send it off. Human Resources, the final cut is now exported. Never again to be touched. I cannot believe I got through that. I take my bow. I'm gonna celebrate the victory and success of this insane moment.
It's over, baby! It's freaking over! Oh my God!
I did it.
Have you ever started a project and realized you've bitten off more than you can chew? Then you're staring at it like, maybe I'm never gonna finish this. I set out to edit a feature film entirely by myself, and throughout COVID, with just a little bit of help, I was able to make it happen. Finally, it was time to take a break and start preparing for the most insane part of the process, from mirroring the movie to our cast and crew, going to film festivals, and leading to the movie streaming on Stars and going to movie theaters. But how did we do it? For that, you're gonna have to wait until next time.